Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear us okay?
I can.
Great.
Hi, Diane. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Well, I can.
Okay.
Doug, who are we waiting for?
I'm just waiting on Chris.
Okay. Thank you. I like all of your baseball action figures behind you, Diane.
We're Brewer fans.
Yeah. Tough end of the season.
It was.
Good evening, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Good evening, everybody.
Congratulations on the marathon.
Oh, thanks very much. I made it. I didn't injure myself. That was my goal.
Well, I think it was the pretty impressive time, given that it was your first one, right?
It's my first and it will not be my last. Already signed up for 3 more.
Oh my God. He's addicted.
I'm addicted.
Okay. So are we good, Doug?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize that I'm not there in person. But as Doug knows, I was working with clients in California this weekend, and one of my members of the client group came down with COVID. So I'm exercising caution and testing in the meantime. So I'd like to call the meeting to order of the City of Monona Zoning Board of Appeals, Thursday, October 21, 2021. Doug, I assume you know who's here. There's no need
Yes.
to verbally call a roll. And I assume we don't have any appearances outside of the people that are here this evening for the public hearing?
We do have one. We
Okay,
have one, Chris. Would you like to come forward and would you like to speak tonight?
Not yet.
Okay. So typically, we have a gentleman here. Are you interested in speaking or?
I will.
Okay. So we have the appearance section. We also have the public hearing.
right.
So that would be, I guess, another opportunity.
Yep, we can do it during the public hearing.
Okay.
Great. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 26, 2021?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Chris, you're muted.
I will second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carries. The minutes are approved. We'll move right to number 5, the public hearing. Brandon and Emily Goatsman of 4541 Winnicor Road are requesting a variance from the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, section 48024D7A, accessory structure maximum height for the purpose of building a new pergola shade structure on top of the existing boathouse. Case number Z-009-2021. So with that, we'll open the public hearing.
Would you like to introduce?
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you very much to the board for taking the time this evening. Also want to say I'm so thankful to be part of the Monona community. We moved here in November of last year from Chicago, but we're both from the Wisconsin area and are so thankful to be back and welcomed into the community, and we love it here. And so, with that, our proposal, our request is to build a pergola on top of an existing boathouse. What's driving our sensitivity to getting some shade on the boathouse, which has a completed deck and an existing deck, is that my wife is a skin cancer survivor. And so that is our true sensitivity to ultimately trying to come up with a solution to allow us to fully enjoy the outdoor space that we do have in our home. We recognize that alone cannot be the reason for granting a zoning variance. And so we have put together a proposal on why we think that our parcel is very unique from a number of perspectives, and why we think that the proposed pergola should be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The first reason is the unique parcel that we have. We are sort of at the tip of an outlet that gives us a wide open kind of west and north view to the lake, which creates significant winds typically throughout the entire year. And we've actually tried to use umbrellas as a way to generate shade. And unfortunately, with the winds, the consistent winds, which are typically west to east, have kind of shredded some of those umbrellas and made it challenging just to rely on those for a source of shade, which we think that truly is unique to our parcel. The second item is, there was this tree that was providing some partial shade on our very topographic and tall kind of walk, path down to the boathouse. Unfortunately, that tree has since died, and it wasn't a solution in the first place, but it just shows that this is a challenging topography in order to come up with any other natural solution in order to create shade for utilization, or for utilizing the top of the boathouse. And lastly, we think that our parcel is going to be particularly impacted by climate change over time because of it being close to the water and having kind of open and uncovered uncovered views with no natural source of shade, from trees and that perspective. So we did provide future projections on how our zip code is likely to be impacted with climate change. Lastly, I'd like to mention, how we think we're not harming the public interest. We specifically designed this in a way to be aesthetically appealing. We have a setback so that it's not positioned against the north side on the water. It's set back in a way that the top of the pergola is approximately the same height as the fence line in our backyard. As you can see on page 5, the picture of how kind of steep our grade is into the backyard. And so we think that really eliminates any view obstructions that would otherwise be impacting any others around us. And lastly, we've decided to upgrade to a more expensive fencing around the top of our boathouse as part of the bigger project, which will be a glass see-through concept, which you can see on page 6, which will actually enhance views of our neighbors as opposed to detract from them. And so we're doing everything that we think we can to be a good neighbor and ultimately, achieve our goal of preventing, future bouts of skin cancer for my wife and for our family, and ultimately, enhance the overall aesthetic of our boathouse. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing portion? This would be the time to speak. Good evening, sir. If you could state your name and address to start, that would be terrific.
It's for you. So with a mask, first of all, I don't speak well in public anyhow. With a mask, it may be difficult, so I did bring pieces, but I don't know how to get them to you guys, so.
No, we're good.
Doug has them, so I'll read this to the best of my ability, and I think staff can clarify anything that isn't clear when I read. Is that okay?
Yes.
This is regarding the variance for 4541 Winnequa Road. The response is from George Kinsler, 4539 Winnequa Road. Excuse me. Our family has owned the eastward adjoining property for over 40 years. During this time, the subject property has had several additions within the shoreland area. The original existing screened-in porch was enclosed, and the square footage toward the lake was doubled. Next, an above-grade deck was added to the enclosed porch, further encroaching the setback. A second area adjacent to the west side of the aforementioned deck was developed with a permanent hot tub, impacting the Madison skyline vista. Most recently, a seemingly non-conforming replacement boathouse was created with a new concrete floor almost 4 feet above the shoreline grade, allowing the height of the structure to lessen the steps needed to access the rooftop from the lakefront lawn. They're hearing the presentation, just very eloquent and very professional. I still am not aware of any hardship that provides a basis for granting this request of variance. You good with that?
Yeah, everybody have that? Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to close the public hearing. And move to number 6, consideration of action. Brandon and Emily Yotzman of 4541 Winnequa Road are requesting variance from Monona Municipal Code of Ordinance Section 480-24D7A, accessory structure maximum height for the purpose of building a new pergola shade structure on top of the existing boathouse. Case number Z-009-2021. With that, I will open it up to the board. Board
Doug?
discussion.
Oh, sorry. What is the maximum height for accessory structures? in
Maximum
Monona?
height is 14 feet.
And sir, what is the height of your proposed pergola?
You have that number? I think it's actually right around 14 feet.
But is that 14 feet from where, Doug?
Yeah, so with the boathouse, it is typically measured from, obviously from the lakeside, when these are on, into the slope. It's typically from the bottom of the door. And I have a copy of the approved building permit plans for the boathouse from 2009 from the file. And I apologize that these are not in the packet. But the way that shows it, it's just a slightly different perspective than is shown on the on sheet C105 in the packet. These plans show the boathouse. Obviously, it's a flat roof right at that 14 feet. So any addition, any structural addition would be in addition to that number. So as my math goes, it's a 9-foot structure that would be in addition. The fencing, just for reference, we typically allow that. Obviously, it's a safety aspect. So fencing, we do encourage, and I'm pleased to see the glass. We try to encourage as clear of a view as possible, is limit the impact as much as possible. But the fence itself is permitted. So again, the 2009 plans show a 42-inch fence, and I believe that would be the same this time as well. So it's a 9-foot. That was a long way of saying it's a 9-foot pergola.
Thank you.
I'm
So-
sorry, I still need a little more clarification on, so when you say 9 feet, and the pergola's height is, was it 14 feet?
No, it's 9 feet. That was me guessing. The actual plans show 9 feet.
And the
Okay.
original boathouse was 9?
14.
The original boathouse was 14, and that's the maximum. So we would be looking at 9 feet over and above what is typically approved.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Responding. Please check its next.
so really, the code says that in this case, there can really be no pergola whatsoever. Is that correct?
As the code would be read, yes. So the pergola would count as a structure as part of that. And so from my read of this, the proposal would be a maximum of 23 feet, would be a total of 23 feet. So the 9 plus 14. Yep.
And at what point does something become part of the structure? Like, I mean, we don't count an umbrella on top of the boathouse as a structure because it's not a fixture, I presume. But a pergola is attached permanently. So is it that anything that's permanently attached to the boathouse becomes part of the structure?
Yeah, I would say that is my interpretation of this. So basically the year-round nature of it, if this is something that's going to be attached to the top of the roof, and not be taken in during the winter and things like that, that would deem it part of a structure. Yes.
I see. Thank you. And I take it the pergola won't be taken down for the winter? Is that correct?
Yeah, it is physically attached. And it sort of needs to be to prevent it from falling over and, being a safety hazard.
I do have a question. I'm Wayne Davies with W. Davies and Sons Remodeling on the board. On the manufactured structure that you list, is it are those mechanical louvers on top of the structure? Is that correct?
They are louvers, yes,
Okay. All right.
to allow kind of true blocking out of the sun as
Yep.
opposed to like a a kind of open air pergola that kind of has angles, but still
Yep.
allows sunlight through.
Yeah, I visited the site. I just wanted to know more about the structure itself.
Sure.
So, so it was interesting in how you can, it is basically, right, mechanical louvers, right, as you say, to block the sun when needed, or open them up
Exactly.
for breeze or something like that, or whatever that is to bring more sunlight in. So I wasn't sure if that was the case with all the structures or just this one. Okay,
Just this one, yes.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Getzman, can you tell me what the difference in height would be between the top of your fence and this top of this pergola? You know what the difference, I mean, I don't know, in
I don't know
the
the differences,
drawing,
but-
it looks, yeah, in the
Yeah.
drawing, it looks like the pergola is taller, but I don't know.
Yeah.
On page 1.
Yeah, I don't know how to scale that drawing is, but
Okay,
it's a very steep grade, as you can see. And it really is close from a height perspective. I just don't know if that's an accurate grade on that fence, on the way that that rendering is put together.
It looks pretty, Diana, it looks pretty close to me. And
yeah,
if I look at the elevation on C 105,
okay,
you have that?
I think so, yeah, yep,
So by kind of looking at the very, if their drawings are correct, the very top step that leads up to the rear yard, if
Yeah.
you took 3 feet from there, and basically typically that's what a railing system would be, is around 3 feet. That puts it at that 874 foot level, or very,
Oh.
very close to the top of that pergola. So they are very close
Okay.
to each other. That from
Okay.
what I'm seeing,
thanks, Win.
sure.
I think that is also shown in the previous sheet in 104, the cross section, that just sort of drawing a line from the top of the pergola, it looks as if it's right in line with kind of the top rail of the fence.
I guess I do have a question for the owner. As I was reading through the application on page 6, the last paragraph says, in conclusion and consistent with the zoning code's overarching goals, we believe that our proposal pergola and other upgrades to the boathouse is within the spirit of maintaining a good neighborhood. I'm not sure, so that's a bit, it's kind of overlapping and concerning to me, of like, if we're approving one thing, which is the pergola tonight, I'm wondering what other upgrades in this need approval by zoning, and why aren't they brought to the table at one point?
I think Doug can help answer this, but we've submitted the full plans here. And this includes redoing all the decking and all the stairs as well. And so the decking on the roof, the railing around, the railing down the stairs, all of that will be redone, because our staircase is actually falling off the side of our
okay.
house right now. So it's a safety hazard. So we're redoing all of that at the same time as the pergola, but it's my understanding that everything is already inconsistent with the existing structure, and so therefore that would be approved. The only thing that was in need of a zoning variance, if you will, is the pergola. So that's why we're specifically talking about the pergola.
Right,
And I can just jump in, again, referencing the 2009 plans. Typically, city policy is that the steps required for access to the boathouse, as long as they're minimally invasive and sort of mirror what is there, they're permissible. And I believe in speaking with the contractor, that's sort of what I relayed here. There's a little bit of concern about sort of the bottom area, the landing, which I sort of expressed that looks like it is a bump out, if you will, sort of certainly from what I'm seeing a staircase that runs down, but nothing else. And so I think we can kind of discuss that, offline, but certainly at least at this point, the parameter of this is really for the, what's posted, what's sort of for consideration tonight is the pergola itself. And I think I can share that we'll look to work, administratively on this to mirror what is there. And if there's, the concern here is sort of an additional deck or a landing at the bottom, if that's sort of a greater area or something like that, that's a little bit of concern. And I did relay that, sort of seeing existing versus future conditions is kind of how we like to review these. So I can work with the applicant and with the contractor offline, but certainly for tonight, it's the pergola.
Okay.
piece. Yeah.
All right, so I'll make sure that we're taking this whole boathouse structure, right, that from the individual that came forth from with his concerns is that if we are taking the full approach to this boathouse, if part is non-conforming and part is conforming, and to what extent do we then, are we tacking on other things onto this boathouse that we're not familiar with at this point, right? So if we accept, right, one thing and it comes back to us, again, that's my concern, and that's why I brought up the question.
Yeah, I was not aware, actually, that
Okay.
there was any other issues, at least not through my contractor, and so.
That's fine, that's fine.
For what it's worth, I know you're referencing kind of the kick out in those old plans.
Yeah.
This is much higher than in reality, and so these steps that we're going down to the base,
Mhm.
there is no landing here.
Okay.
So it's actually a major safety hazard.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to solve the safety hazard where this sliding glass door would open into a landing, because right now it opens into a staircase, and it's like you basically fall out of the steps. So we're just trying to resolve
Yeah.
that safety issue.
But I think just for everyone on the call, just for clarity, the discussion here is kind of the sliding, the two doors facing the lake and sort of the access there from the stairs. I think the biggest concern, and I typically in zoning will run this by building inspection as well and make sure that this is code compliant, for safety and things like that. So if there is a significant step that's unsafe, I think that we'd be willing to work with that. But I think the biggest concern was kind of the steps going into the lake, and I relayed that, with the piers and things too that are proposed. That gets into DNR purview as soon as it's in the lake. So there's sort of that component too. But I think just as a sweeping statement, it's fair to say that if it's a code enforcement, if it's a building code or a sort of like for like, I'm comfortable that replacement of damaged stairs or unsafe stairs, then that's certainly fair. Pretty much like for like with new materials, that's not a problem. But just concerned, as I think everyone is, with kind of creep on the lake from additional area. But certainly happy to work that out, and I don't think we're too far apart. Sure. With that. Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that, Doug.
Yeah.
So if I can speak again, one of the things I want to ask as well is anytime there is a permanent structure put onto a building, right? At the simplest form, we have to ask the question, will there be anything added to the structure at a later date that seems, doesn't seem too difficult, but like, for instance, is there a possibility that by any chance someone says, hey, we want to stop the shade from coming in from the west side on a bright sunny day, and all of a sudden you're putting up a tarp, right, or a canvas or a shade screen of some sort?
Sure.
That's what I'm concerned about. Now we have a permanent structure, and now we can put up a shade screen, right, to help with the conditions.
Sure.
But that's what I'm most concerned of. And how do we comply, or how do we monitor that down the road and give somebody just that ability. That's what I'm worried about. So,
I guess I want to go back to, again, what the state statute is, and Chris's original reference, which is that this structure, this permanent structure, is against code as it's currently written. It would be, the permanent structure would be significantly higher than the 14 feet. And so going back to the state statute, I think we have to think about, you know, where's the unnecessary hardship? And please understand, by saying that, I'm not suggesting that your wife's diagnosis is not a hardship. And I say that as a cancer survivor. But what I am saying is that, you know, I'm not seeing that as sufficient of a rule, number one. And number two, in terms of the property limitations, you know, I think just about anybody on the bluff along Monona could argue that their winds are high, or that the sun is bright, or that climate change is going to infect their property. And so I'm not sure that I see unique physical limitations to this particular boathouse. So I guess I would ask the board's deliberations potentially around those two things out of the other pieces of the state statute. And if people are seeing something different, by all means, that's why you're the board.
I would say, Alder Moore, you put into words exactly what I was thinking, but couldn't articulate. I mean, obviously we are, we don't want to belittle your wife's skin condition, but the fact remains that, like Alder Moore just said, everybody along the lake could argue almost this exact same point, maybe not about their wife's skin condition, but about the other arguments that were made. And I would imagine that the reason this code exists is to prevent tall structures from obscuring the view of the lake and the skyline that so many people enjoy and pay a great deal of taxes to enjoy. So my concern is that if we were to approve this tonight, it could cause a cascading. I mean, we could see boathouses up and down the lake with this exact same structure. And
I struggle. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
please, no, that I was kind of.
Well, I felt the same. I mean, I really struggled with the unnecessary hardship also, just because we're sort of boxed in by what state statute allows for justifications for an approval. And I made a lot of notes when I looked at everything and when I've been listening to you, and I'm trying to kind of write out, well, what could I come up with an unnecessary hardship? And then my other thing was the gentleman that spoke, because when on first view, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy to approve and there's no impact on the neighbors, but clearly there's a neighbor that feels like there is an impact. But yeah, I struggle myself, and agree with you, Chris. You know, just about everybody. I mean, it's a really nice structure, and the pergola is a great idea, but then it, you know, probably wrong place.
Other board members?
I'm trying to recall of the boathouses that we've looked at before and the hardships in some of those. Just as a comparison. Trying to remember, I don't remember them having as much yard to work with as far as like enjoying. Does that ring a bell, or does that?
Yeah, I mean, the most recent one that comes to mind is the also Antonio Watt, the Goatsinger property where they put the screen porch on top, and it was probably not too dissimilar in terms of the finished height. And I believe that one, it was sort of a screen porch, so again had the level of degree of transparency across. But that one, I think the hardship really owed more to the adjacent lot with the weeds and the condition of it at the time. I don't recall too many other boathouse height since I've been here that have come through other than that, but that's the one that had some parallels, at least in the proposal. But I think the hardship owed mostly on that one to the adjacent lot.
Yeah, I would just comment that being in the community, as we know, the whole shoreline there, and you're there for a reason. Everyone is there for a reason, for the view, right? And boathouses are a very unique structure to themselves. Most of them were built non-compliant to begin with, right out of the gate. Most of them dilapidated, trying to be fixed up and like without destroying any other property or combating any other issues with other properties. The severity of those slopes are just terrible. We are just very hard to work in and begin with. And then trying to find ways to keep those structures right and enjoy some of that view with fixing some of those structures up. Yeah, I think the chairperson hit it right on the head, I believe, is that at some point there has to be just a limit of height restrictions on the boathouses, because everybody wants the boathouses to be almost livable spaces. And that's the struggle with these structures. They're so unique, but they're just so inviting. You want to do so many things to it. And the limitation is as such that the state puts these, right, state has put, right, those limitations in place so that everyone can enjoy their views, I guess. So yeah, even though that this is a great structure, I would love to have one myself, right? It's durable, it's got the vented roof. It's difficult, right, to find just a way to get around the reason being as a passable conformant, I guess, to the structure. So I'll leave it there.
Can I speak? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. I guess I would be interested to get the board's thoughts. The gentleman that spoke earlier, he is my neighbor. I've actually never met him, never seen him before. The house is abandoned and basically falling apart and unkept in so many ways that we're dealing with our own, rodent population encroachments and mosquitoes and all of those same issues that it sounds like another boathouse submission was sort of dealing with. I guess if I resubmit this in a month and request protection against the mosquitoes that are coming at our property and at us from the fact that our neighbor's not keeping his property up, would that be subject for reconsideration?
But a pergola doesn't keep out a mosquito.
I know, I could come back with a pergola with, mosquito nets, I suppose. Sort of like the screened-in porch concept.
I don't believe that the condition of your neighbor's property would have any bearing on our decision as to whether to approve whatever structure you provided. That's an issue for the building inspector. That would not be an issue for the zoning board.
Understood. Just, it did sound like that a similar situation was approved. So that's why I asked if it would be open for reconsideration under a different hardship.
Do we have a a motion? Anybody? Or other questions, comments?
I'll take the motion. My motion is to deny variance based on the state statutes with a limitation of 14 feet. And structure going above the 14 foot by 9 feet. As a permanent structure.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Yes, Doug?
Yes.
Can I just ask the maker of the motion for a little more clarity as it relates to sort of the steps from maybe the decision process, so that, you know, for example, the hardship or the property limitations, if you could state a couple of those just for the record, please.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
At this time, I didn't see any hardships that brought to light any of the qualifications as a hardship for the structure itself. With that being said. Will that work?
And if property limitations at all, or unique property limitations, could you possibly address that?
As a non-hardship?
As it relates to the request, if there's if you deemed there to be or not to be unique physical property limitations present.
As the shoreline goes, I don't see those. The shoreline is consistent through many properties of that shoreline. So I don't see it as a unique situation. With your condition, I don't see that as a unique condition.
Thank you.
Yep.
Doug, it also seemed like we heard from several people that they felt like, and I don't want to put the words in anybody's mouth, but I know we were trying to walk through the state statute. It seemed like people were saying that it would harm the public interest in that it would have the cumulative impact or long-term impact of conceivably opening anyone and everyone along the bluff to want to build higher. So I don't know if that works for you or it works for other people that mentioned it. So I have a motion and I have a second. Doug, do you feel like you have what you need in terms of the state statute?
I do, yes.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Sorry, we weren't able to help you out here.
Of course, I understand. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Doug? We're up on number 7 in the next meeting. Do you have anything in the hopper?
I do. I just today received one application. I'm expecting possibly a second as well for a November meeting. So the meeting date would, as it stands, would be November 18th, which would be exactly a week before Thanksgiving. So I just wanted to, check the room now if there's any conflicts with that, or if how availability would look, and if we maybe need to pursue a different date.
I can
Fine
do
for me,
May.
Doug, yeah.
I think I'm fine.
Okay.
Works for me.
Great.
Great.
So let's plan on the 18th. I may just email both Brad and Ryan just to check and make sure, but let's plan for the 18th, and certainly we have at least one application.
Great. Thank you. With that, updates, discussion on DEI efforts.
I don't have anything specific to add at this time.
Okay. I would just mention, since it's very much relates to zoning, and even a zoning variance, if you will, that the Plan Commission recently had a second pre-hearing on a development that's been drafted for the property behind the Shell station on Broadway, what's known as the Chief's property. And I would say that the second pre-hearing on the development went very well. And that development is for Monona's first affordable housing in a very long time. New affordable housing. It's a really terrific, I think, development as initially drafted. We obviously have not, that was a pre-hearing. We still have many steps to take before we get, before we approve or don't approve that development, but I'm just wanted people to know that the Plan Commission did give it a thumbs up at the pre-hearing level.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Townhouses and an apartment building. So it's both, with a playground and a grill area, an outdoor patio, a real neighborhood kind of feel to it. How many units altogether, Doug?
75 units.
75 units altogether. So not that big. 12 of those are townhouses?
12 townhomes, 63 apartments. And if I recall, around 15 of those would be market rate, with the rest of them on a scale of workforce based upon area median income.
Right. Right. And the developer already received approval from Dane County to get their support. Received money from Dane County, and they'll be working with WIDA as well. Again, if the Plan Commission approves the development, but okay.
The townhomes are rentals or are they condos?
They would all be for rent, as I understand.
Okay. Anything else before we adjourn?
Oh, I just wanted to say that, with respect to boat houses, I don't live on the lake. I wish I did. maybe I will someday. Some houses have boathouses, some do not. I would imagine that everybody that has a boathouse feels incredibly lucky. The people that don't have them either wish they had one or they hate them. And I feel like we made the right decision tonight. I mean, it's hard to say no to people. I don't like saying no to anybody when they're trying to make one of their little dreams come true, but this was the right thing to do. You know?
Thanks,
Yeah,
Greg.
thanks, Chris. I appreciate you just kind of mentioning that. I've always said that, you know, I have a unique position just because I'm in the building trade, right? And I've always, I struggle, I just tell it publicly, I struggle because you pinned it down, like people that have one, they really want to make the most of that, right? When you don't have one, you can't get one for some reason, right? So it's like one or the other. And I've been in, you know, I've been a recipient of doing stuff to them. I've been a recipient of being denied. So I kind of just, I've been kind of know those boundaries, and it's difficult every time. When you say no to somebody, you can't have that. So I appreciate everybody having given their input because it is very difficult, right? But I've always said it's, you know, I guess I mentioned to Doug, I take this position as a position for the community and for all. And sometimes it's very difficult, right? And that's why we have those guidelines, and appreciate Nancy just bringing that up about the state statute guidelines. I live that every day, right? With the business that I'm in, I have to live it every single day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and I think obviously why those state guidelines exist is not to deny anybody a boathouse, because we certainly have a lot of them, but to limit what people can do with a boathouse so that it really is a boathouse as opposed to a second living structure or a much larger facility. I mean, that's certainly, you know, the DNR's position, and that's been Monona's position to try to as well, but that's certainly the state's position in terms of the DNR, is that doesn't become a second home in a sense for people. So but I appreciate that the decision is difficult. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Again, thank you all. I know,
Thank you.
especially when it's difficult, I really appreciate it.
Thank
We'll
you.
look forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
next month.
all right, thank you.
Bye.
Feel free to
Bye.
come over to the library to talk about Winnequa Road.
I'm tapping into the meeting right now.
Oh, you are?
I am.
I'm like, I didn't mean to pack up before we left, but I'm like, okay, gotta go.
Yeah, no, I'm headed there right now.
Okay.
Wow.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.